oh, look, it's a Monday stream. And apparently my guest / well, we've got a big announcement, is jamming out to the intro. How y'all doing? There's 54 of you that were hanging out this freaking early. Holy crap. Excited to see you guys. Lots and lots and lots of new names that I'm seeing in the live chat too, so that's exciting. So y'all need a quick refresher. This is an allyship space because there are a number of both atheist and polytheist folks who watch this channel. Like, my primary focus is always going to be pagans. But I have been doing allyship work between atheists and polytheists and various interfaith sort of dialogues between various polytheist faiths. Dang it, Ikeda, we're not there yet for quite some time. So, with that in mind, welcome all of you, but remember, this is an allyship space, so that means if you disagree with us, that's fine. You can articulate your disagreement, but please be polite about it. Rule number 2, y'all see slurs, like any of my mods see a slur, you're gone. Just, there's no questions about it. You're gone. That includes the R slur. If you don't know what the R slur is, well, go look it up. There's lists of them online. And number 3, mythic literalism and proselytizing, including atheist proselytizing, is not cool. Don't do that shit. Just don't do it. It's not welcome on this channel at all. Like, we don't really care if y'all believe in what we do. We expect the same. So, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Ikeda, for the $20 super chat. Ikeda says, welcome to you, Nervardia. Staniel says, we are there yet. So, Mero and I have a really big announcement, but first, let's have Mero introduce herself a little bit for those of you who don't know about her, because it's been a hot minute since you've been back on this channel, huh?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I do have to point out, thank you, Ikeda, for saying that we are all on the same page. A good pun. And also, I will gladly accept Usham Gal. I probably destroyed that way to pronounce that, but I thank you. My name's
It basically, if I recall correctly, it basically means snake.
Yes, that's what Ikeda said. It was okay.
Mero knows how to speak English, I promise.
What?
I said Mero knows how to speak English, I promise.
No, she's lying.
So it's been a hot minute. You want to talk a little bit about yourself? Like, you've got a degree now. The last time you came here, you hadn't gotten your degree yet.
No, I now officially have a degree. I am now a scientist. Yes. Oh, hey, Vagrant Sam. How you going? Yes, I am a scientist. I am still Australian. I still don't exist. I have been very, very slack on producing content. So hopefully this will encourage me to get my ass out of my head and do actual content again, because someone has been yelling at me for not doing that. Well, multiple people have been, but someone else, basically a clear guy, is just going, fucking do shit, Meredith.
Well, I mean, I am your script editor. When you're not doing shit, I don't have business.
Exactly.
There is screw you, I'm paying you levels of incentive there.
There is.
So, what's the big announcement that we have? Because there's some exciting stuff going down on this channel.
Yes. I'm going to be a friend.
I mean, you've been one of my best friends for 2 freaking years. Like, this woman is one of the few humans who can say that they talk to me daily and do not live with me.
Exactly. It's a horrifying thought.
Ikeda, you and your dang puns. Thank you for the $5 super chat. And yes, our condolences, Nervardia. Thank you so much, Staniel.
Yeah, for being Australian. I know, I'm sorry too. At least we kicked out fucking Djokovic. Oh, that was
so. Since Nervardia is sort of kicking this around, let's just be out with it. The Xenia Bridge is coming back, official. And Mero is going to be the co-host. It's going to be a twice-a-month Monday show at the same time as my normal live streams. Mero, let's talk a little bit about some of the changes that are coming, because it's coming back as the Bridge, not as the Coalition, and we're still waiting on new theme song, new intro stuff, And we're waiting on the new icon from JACandQuill, but he has been given the specifics of like what we both want for our avatars and everything. Whole big rebrand that's coming. We are bringing the allyship content back, which is something that's really, really exciting as well. But let's talk a little bit about some of the other changes that are coming, because like we're both STEM majors, so there's some fun to be had there.
Yeah, so there's going to be less politics as we go into start our first stream. It's all about politics. So there's going to be less. It's going to be less politics. Probably more bugs, like more microbes and stuff like that, because microbes are cool. Everyone needs to learn about microbes. Like they're very fascinating things. There's going to be more learning how to read things, read scientific papers and that sort of stuff. So there's more science, less politics.
Though we may cover, as we are going to today, scientific politics from time to time, and every so often I might get so mad that we end up talking politics. Or Mara does, because let's face it, you can't be a science communicator in the modern day without getting into politics, because for some reason they've decided that science is political. Because, it tends to agree with the left more often than it doesn't. But, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Nobody heard me
Reality
say that.
has a left-leaning bias.
Child of Nyx with the incredible $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Child of Nyx. Xenia Brigitte's coming back. Yes, we'll behave now.
You behaved before? I don't. Yeah. Well, that fell flat.
But tis. Anyway, so with that in mind, that's kind of what things are going to be looking like. And we actually have, for our very first thing that we want to cover tonight, so we are going to be talking about book banning. We are going to be getting to that toward the middle of the show. First thing we want to talk about tonight, though, unfortunately, is this stupid study, because this has got Mara all up in arms, and I promised her she'd get at least one topic on the list tonight. Just linked in the live chat, though it might be catching out, a commentary on this so-called Johns Hopkins study that shows that lockdowns supposedly are ineffective against COVID-19. So this is kind of near and dear to Maro's heart, because a lot of people in her country right now are kind of being piss ants about the fact that lockdowns have been very effective there, but they suck. So do you want to talk a little bit about what this so-called, we're going to stress this is unpublished. Oh, we lost your camera again.
Oh dear.
Oh, we lost a camera. We have been having tech gremlin problems all freaking night. So she might have to drop and come back if it happens again. Oh, you're on a black screen. We're working on it. Oh, hey. There we go.
Okay.
Stu the Woodcarden Druid did a super sticker. That's adorable. Thank you so much, Stu.
Oh, thank you. I will say that if I do drop out, it's because I don't know. There's a very, very, very touchy kind of connection over there, and it's like if I breathe in that direction, it's like nah. So
y'all, if you're a channel member, please spam the ram burning emoji. Okay, like we need those offerings of the ram sticks tonight. We need to appease the tech gremlins. All right, please. So let's talk a little bit about this so-called study. First off, let's stress it's not published. It is not peer reviewed. Yeah. It is not a study.
And nor will it be. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's crap. But that's beside. You know what? I'm gonna let you get mad, because I'm already mad. I'm already hot. But nobody needs to hear how mad I am right now.
Yeah. So basically, there was this Johns Hopkins study that showed that COVID-19 lockdowns have been basically useless. And coming from a person who lives in Queensland who didn't actually have a severe outbreak of COVID-19 until we opened up the borders, i.e. we ended our lockdown, it kind of doesn't make any sense. So this Johns Hopkins study
is not a study, and it wasn't put on by Johns Hopkins as a university. It was put on by an economist. It was an economist or three economists, one of which was affiliated with Johns Hopkins. So, Fox News is lying to y'all there, first off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a professor from Johns Hopkins University. They very, very, very cherry-pick the data, because they considered a lockdown to be something that is a non-therapeutic mitigation strategy. So that could be from full lockdowns where everyone's staying at home to mask wearing and social distancing. So if you include mask wearing, if you say that mask wearing and social distancing stops the disease from spreading, yeah, it wouldn't be as effective as actual sitting at home twiddling your thumbs. So
Well, and I'm going to stress you all that, again, these are economists that put this data together, not epidemiologists, not, medical specialists, not public health specialists, not doctors. Like, tell me, the article that I linked from Forbes has this very witty retort where they say, well, tell me, how much of a comforting thought will it be if you're in the hospital with a broken arm and you're told by the triage nurse, oh, an economist will be in here to set it shortly.
Exactly. So basically that's, first of all, it's not peer reviewed. It's not published, it's not peer reviewed, nor will it be published because it's a shit paper. Second of all, the net that they cast was so fucking broad that it basically garbage in, garbage out. You put garbage information in about lockdowns. Yes.
Well, and like I found the specific definition they used. Lockdowns are defined as the imposition of at least one compulsory non-pharmaceutical intervention.
Yeah. Or a security. Yeah. So in this Forbes article, the dictionary.com definition describes lockdown as a security measure taken during an emergency to prevent people from leaving or entering a building or other location. So unless you're wearing a ridiculously enormous face mask or one with BDSM chains attached to your friend, wearing a face mask shouldn't prevent you from leaving or entering most buildings. This is a great article, by the way.
This article is great.
Yeah. So,
and the next sentence, by the way, is, okay, changing definitions aside, did this working paper really provide enough evidence to support its bold claims? In a word, no. In 2 words, heck no.
It's a great article. Yeah. So the meta-analysis, if you actually look at other studies gone into it, that, the vast majority of them have all gone, yeah, they work. So, but what you will be seeing is a lot of people who are saying that you'll find a lot of people pointing to this John Hopkins
quote unquote study. Yeah, John Hopkins, which it's not, study, which it's not, meta-analysis, which it's also not, because the vast majority of papers, as Health Nerd, aka JACandQuill, points out over on Twitter, like, the vast majority of the studies that have been done, the biggest, most robust studies that you would want in a meta-analysis, have been excluded by definition.
Yeah. So basically, if you're going to hear about this this so-called study, they're wrong, they're crap. Don't believe them. Anyway.
Yeah, and one of the people who put on the study is associated with the Cato Institute. Now, folks on the left, cue angry leftist howling, because the Cato Institute is a notorious right-wing think tank that is, like, responsible for drafting such wonderful legislation as bills demanding the banning of CRT because it costs too much money on the national healthcare system. Stuff like that. Like, the Cato Institute, you cannot trust. Ever. Anything they say. Just no.
As a rule.
Yeah, they are so-called libertarian think tank. And by libertarian, I mean the American definition of a libertarian and not actual libertarianism. Because there is a difference. Yeah. So, now that's that. Is there anything more that you want to say about that stupidity? Apart from, microbes don't work like that. Like, literally, if you stay in your house, you can only give microbes to other people that are in your house. Like, if you don't go anywhere, like, do the microbes, like, if it's not effective to stay in your house, do the microbes just, like, what? Did they build rocket ships and fly to other people's houses? Like, how does that happen?
No, what they do is they they kind of use the technology that we're using right now in regards to being able for me to exist and have this conversation with you. The technology that we got that technology from them, and they actually just teleport the way into other people's sinus cavities.
Clearly, like, so apparently, so you talking right now, everybody just got spat on, like, but at least in your area, the virus isn't everywhere. Now, I just coughed on you. Unfortunately, that means that all of you are sick, so congratulations.
Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, like, I don't understand how the hell anybody could think a lockdown would be ineffective, because, like, if people don't break the lockdown, then by definition, you can only get sick from the people you come into contact with. That's how microbes work.
Well, I'm going to give you an example. My premier, Anastasia Palaszczuk, she was so good. She actually got voted back in very convincingly after the because we had an election during the pandemic.
Jellybean brings up a good point. They use the 5G towers to infect people.
That's also part of the technology that they use. But
So I hope you all know that this is satire, okay? Mama YouTube, this is satire, okay, Susan? Like, we are joking. We are both, like, fans of science here, even though we both know that Australia doesn't exist. Like, we are fans of science here and actually believe the pandemic is real, and I nearly died from it. Okay, like, this is my perspective. For those of y'all that are new to my channel and have not seen any of my rants about this, I nearly died from COVID-19. I ended up in the hospital with a blood clot as a complication for it, and my husband ended up in the hospital with a fever over 104 for a week. Nervardia was scared out of her freaking mind, like, during the entire time that I was sick, because I damn near ended up intubated because I have really bad lungs to begin with, because, well, I had a lot of problems growing up, not in the least of which being that I was kind of underdeveloped. So I have a lot of health issues. Generally, I've got 2 autoimmune conditions. I was born with all of my health issues. So, like, I am that high-risk person that you're supposed to go out and get the vaccine to protect, because I got it. But, like, that doesn't mean my immune system does what it's supposed to do. My immune system's so busy trying to kill me that I don't get that protection properly. Not the same level you do. So, like, seriously, y'all, if you can, like, get the vaccine. Stay the fuck at home if you need to. Like, still limit your stuff out there if you can. You know, wear a freaking mask. Do all the shit that keeps you safe, because you're protecting people like me. I am one of those people. If you are a fan of my content and you want me to keep breathing, please keep doing the good things, because the more of us that do the good things, the less likely we all are to get sick.
Also, I want to say something about the vaccines. Okay, I work in disabilities, and just before Christmas, one of my clients' support worker, his daughter got COVID. So my client's daughter, client support worker's daughter. So it was like a person in between. That person, like, we have to be immunized to work in our field. Like, that's a mandatory thing. Totally okay with that. Before anybody brings up, I'm just going to say, don't bring up mandatory vaccinations. But it was basically a person in between, and my client was also fully vaccinated. My client's, the support worker didn't get COVID, neither did my client. And then just after COVID hit, after that, my client also actually ended up getting COVID from somewhere else. We don't know where. And this guy, extremely overweight, diabetic. He just had a cough. He just sounded crook. He recovered from it completely. This person's sister also got COVID. I looked after her for an entire week. I was going over to her place every single day. I felt a little bit crappy for one day, for 24 hours. I just had a runny nose. I was tired. I felt like somebody was stabbing me in the nose with a needle. But I never got it. So if you want to go just simply anecdotally, an entire family that should have died from COVID, all of them were completely vaccinated. They all just got a bit of a cold, and then there was no passing on from one person to the next. from a vaccinated person to a vaccinated person. I never got it. Even though I felt crappy for a day, I never got it. I also have another client whose support worker brought in COVID. This client, she got it mildly. She didn't get. She wasn't.
Sean, there is some evidence that if you do not get the booster shot within 6 months, that you will still get just as sick as if you hadn't been vaccinated. Especially because the latest variation on the virus, Omicron, appears to be very, very good at evading detection by your body until it's already kind of screwing you up. So if you haven't had your third jab yet and it is available in your area, if you can book your appointment, you should do that, because they've shown that the newest variant, Omicron, which is thankfully overtaking more deadly variants, will still absolutely screw up the day up of people who only have double jabs. But if you're triple vaxxed, you're far less likely to get extremely sick. You're far more likely to have a mild variant. Now, keep in mind, even if you have a mild variant, you don't want that shit. That shit can still do organ damage that you don't know about until months and months later. The virus attacks your ACE2 receptor. That's every goddamn cell in your body. So we're not going to stay on this topic for too much longer. But in terms of anecdotal stuff, even studies are even starting to bear out that folks that are triple vaxxed with Omicron and other variants, even the vaccine resistant variants, if you have had a booster shot, particularly if you've had a booster shot with the specifically the RNA vaccines, you are far more likely to be protected because you already have those antibodies in your blood, as opposed to your body having to figure out that the virus is in there in the first place.
Yeah. So I just get it. I mean, I got mine at the beginning of December, and it was the beginning of January where I spent an entire week with a person who was COVID positive, and I didn't get it. And even though I was, of course, wearing masks and she was wearing masks, and we were spending, we weren't. I was still in a household where there was Omicron, and and it's just, I'm seeing firsthand at how good the vaccine is. And also, I read this statistic on Quora. I didn't double check it, but someone did the calculations and found out that they were 51,000 times more likely to die from COVID than the COVID vaccine. So even if you're worried about dying from the COVID vaccine, you're literally orders of magnitudes more likely to, 3 orders of magnitudes, 5 orders of magnitude more likely to die from COVID than you are from the vaccine. So just do it.
So
doesn't hurt.
Well, and if there's a lockdown, obey the goddamn lockdown. Just do it. Stay at home if you can. It sucks, and I know it freaking sucks, but it sucks for all of us. It's doing your civic duty. Things sometimes suck. All right, so now let's get into the big topic, the one that I put in the thumbnail, the one that I put in the title. Book bannings. There is a massive rash of book bannings across the U.S. right now, especially in the South, especially in Texas, where 850 freaking books were banned, which Mero and I went and found an article that had a link to the PDF that was sent out by the Texas State Legislature to all of the various public school libraries to be like, hey, how many copies do you have of all these books? And there's this surprising, or I guess not so surprising because this is fucking Texas, but there's this seemingly surprising trend among them. A lot of them seem to be about sexuality and consent and LGBTQ topics, especially.
And puberty.
And puberty. We were surprised by just how many books on puberty there were. There were several books also about consent and dating. There was one book that was the teenage boy's guide to becoming a dad. Oh, my girlfriend got pregnant. What do I do? Which you'd think in a state that's so anti-birth control would be a thing, right? You'd want kids, if they accidentally knock their girlfriends up, to take responsibility. You'd think that would be what the family value state would want, but still.
And there is one that I pointed out to you that I was like, why is this on the list?
School libraries, but there is talks of them trying to get them banned in public libraries as well.
Yeah. So, but that one that I was sort of really, really confused about, remember, it was right up the top, one of the first ones that I read that I was talking to you about.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to bring up the article? Did you want to link that in the
Yes, I am going. I am already on there. So I am not the biggest fan of The Guardian generally, but this is one of the few articles that I've actually found that has a list actually of the banned books. And so does the Atlantic. The Atlantic says, read the books that the schools want to ban. These 14 titles are under attack for doing exactly what literature is supposed to do. So one of the big ones is To Kill a Mockingbird, which pissed me the hell off because I read To Kill a Mockingbird as required reading in school. And like, yeah, there's a white savior narrative in there, and there are a whole bunch of like slurs and such, but it's also kind of a product of the time. When you're talking about like setting, right? When you're talking about setting in literature, there shouldn't be a fear for authors to portray settings accurately, especially when you're talking about a book about racism, ultimately. Right?
Yeah.
Like your characters have kind of got to deal with racism if you're going to talk about racism in a meaningful way. So like there's that Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood is getting put on the ban list in nearly all of these states. The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I don't know how many of you guys have read that one, but it was removed from like all of Missouri school districts' libraries because there's scenes of non-consent that are in it. Trigger warning that we will be talking about that a little bit in the stream. Let's see. Fallen Angels by Walter Dean Myers. Like, I don't know if you've actually read anything about like Harlem and Vietnam. Most folks have only read Monster, which is a lot more familiar to people. It's about, if I recall correctly, a serial killer. Heather Has Two Mommies. And then the big one where everyone lost their shit, Mouse. I don't know if any of you have read Mouse. It is Art Spiegelman's comic about his Holocaust surviving parents. Basically, it casts children as, or like, I guess, how can I explain this? It makes it easier for children to understand because it's a comic that portrays the horrors of the Holocaust as a conflict between Jewish mice and German cats, which is very much the way that like the affiliation between mice and Jewish people and like the racism surrounding that is very historical. There's some very dark stuff in it. There is a life-ending scene, self-life-ending scene in one of them. One of the two, but it is a very important lesson, I think, for kids. And it was taken off of the, it was banned completely from Tennessee County, and it's also been taken off of the curriculums for middle school and high schoolers in a number of states. And as somebody who read this growing up, and who listened to the stories of Holocaust survivors, which, you know, press F to pay respects for the monetization of this stream. Thank you guys all for your donations, because those are the only monetization that this stream's going to get. Because we're talking about Nazis, we're talking about the Holocaust, we're talking about screwed up stuff. Like, as somebody who read this growing up, it is absolutely required reading. It is one of the best ways to get introduced to some of the horrors that happened, you know, outside of like films like Schindler's List and things of that nature. Like, it is a very approachable way to start to understand on a very personal, individual level some of the horrors outside of just the camps. Because everybody hyper focuses on the camps, as horrific as they were, but there were so many different everyday forms of discrimination, and that gets covered in there. There were a number of like the horrors of trying to escape and just how difficult that was, and you know how things built up are covered extraordinarily well by those books. Like, I don't know if you, Mero, did you read Mouse growing up?
No, I didn't. I just put a link in the chat for anyone who wants to go through the book, the banned book list. But there was one that I wanted to bring up that it was being banned, and it's Cynical Theories: How Activist Scholarship Made Everything About Race, Gender Identity, and Why This Harms Everybody. And I was like, all right, let's look into it. it's by Helen Pluckrose and James Lindsay. And I don't know who Helen Pluckrose is, but James Lindsay is one of the biggest anti-CRT people around. Like, he's constantly being interviewed and he's telling everyone about how bad CRT is and blah, blah, blah. And he's one of those anti-woke, anti-SJW people. And I was like, this is really interesting as to why they're trying to ban cynical theories. It's had generally positive reception. For example, from Harvard University's Steven Pinker. Yes, that's Steven Pinker. A psychologist and public intellectual. He praised the book, saying that it exposes the surprisingly shallow intellectual roots of the movement that appears to be engulfing our culture. And then there's a Spectator cut, like Nigel Warburton writing for the Spectator. So, all of these alt-right, basically neo-Nazis are going, this is the best book on the planet. And so why are they trying to ban that? And I'm thinking the only reason that I can see them going, oh, we're banning this one, is so they can go, oh, but we're also banning things that we agree with. But if you look through the list, the vast majority of them are about pro-LGBT, pro-race, pro racial integration, and
and history. Like, there's a lot of history. There's a lot of history books being banned. Like, I was surprised to find on the list for Texas, there was one of the books that was there was the Supreme Court for teens, like Supreme Court cases about and for teens. And I was like, why would you ban that? Like, that's literally just about history.
There's other ones for things like basically sex, a book for teens, an uncensored guide to your body's sex and safety.
Identity, a story of transitioning. Like, that's another one.
My life as a rhombus, when they're talking about teen pregnancy, a huge number of them are about teen pregnancies.
So, apologies if there are any Polynesian folks in the chat, if I accidentally mispronounced this, but there was a book that I was like, what is that? That sounds really indigenous. That's interesting. Ho'onani Hula Warrior is a book that came out in 2019. It's a children's book. It's about a non-binary hula dancer who was born AFAB and wants to, like, join the male hula dancer team, as and be basically just non-binary. She, like, the person, they don't feel like they are a boy or a girl. They're somewhere in between, and they're navigating the complexities of pressure. Do you have any idea how much I would have killed to have a book like that growing up?
There's some incredible ones that is sort of like, it's so amazing. A book about eggs, sperms, birth, babies, and families. The New Civil War, the lesbian and gay struggle for civil rights.
The Indian Removal Act and the Trail of Tears. They're killing Indigenous history here, too. There's also an Indigenous history of the United States and an Indigenous history of the United States for children. And both of those are in there.
Yeah. And they're talking about abortion. They called themselves the KKK, the birth of an American terrorist group. That's being banned. The history of white people. I'm assuming that's more like, okay, this is what white people did to
well, it might also be like a history of the concept of whiteness, because whiteness is a concept that was invented specifically for politics, and people don't like to talk about that. I do want to respond really quick. Thank you for the $5 super chat, Metal Hawk. As a librarian, thank you so much for talking about this. This is what I've dedicated my life to, and it hurts to see this information constricted. Give a quick cheer for Washington librarians, because across all of Washington state, there are massive displays of books that are on the ban list for Texas and other places. There are these huge displays, even in the smaller public libraries like the ones in my town. There are these massive displays of all of the book ban lists, and they have a special catalog where you can request against books that are currently on the ban list for this nationwide ban. They are very much rebelling against it. There is not, like, as far as I know, as big a movement here in Washington to ban books for the most part. So, like, if y'all are in Washington State and you want to find out more about some of these books and they sound really awesome to you, like, consider this an endorsement list of a sort, because we haven't read every single one of them on here, but a lot of this stuff, like, they are absolutely, like, showing off the books that are within the library system across Washington State. Like, if it exists in the library system, you can check it out. They probably got it on display somewhere.
Also, I'm going to point out there's a couple of Spanish titles as well, like Que pasa en mi cuerpo, el libro el libro para muchachas, meaning what's happening with my body, the book for kids. They're trying to also ban not just English language but Spanish language books as well, because there are a couple that I've seen popped out that was Spanish speak. Sort of like there's I just saw Hispanic. So yeah, they're also trying to talk about banning Hispanic history and Hispanic. But basically all this boils down to, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's more than one book that such as that cynical theories, where it's like obviously that's about books that people that they would be like, oh, we actually agree with this, and we will but we're getting rid of it anyway because, you know, we want to seem like we're fair and balanced. But the vast majority of these are pro-LGBT, are pro-science, are pro-abortion.
Indigenous rights, like abortion history. Like, a lot of these, a shocking number of these, are about Roe v. Wade and about, like, the history of the political fight for abortion rights. You know, press have to pay respects for another round of monetization. We're talking about all the controversies today. Like, here's another title. Nevertheless, we persisted, 48 voices of defiance, strength, and courage. Like, that's feminism, right? That's straight up talking about, like, women fighting for women's rights. You know, Not My Idea, a book about whiteness. Like, again, things that might make people aware, like class consciousness, race consciousness, that sort of things that might people aware of these horrible historical things and positive things, right? Because there was another one that was like LGBTQ folks who changed the world. And it's like, that's positive history right there.
Yeah. Oh, there's also Boy Erased, which is about conversion therapy. There was one, I can't remember what it was called, but basically it was a story of a girl whose best friend died in a car accident, and she was in love with her best friend. She had like a romantic feeling towards her female best friend. So she decided, so the story goes that she was going to take her friend's ashes to the ocean. So it's literally just a love story of unrequited love from a girl to her female best friend. And they're trying to ban it. Like, it seems like a really important and just a sad, heartbreaking, but really beautiful story. And again, they're very happily trying to ban that.
Here's another one, Sowing the Rainbow, the story of Gilbert Baker and the rainbow flag. So, like, even, like, again, any kind of LGBTQ history whatsoever, you know, that's getting banned. One of the ones that shocked me was Heart of Darkness. Heart of Darkness is an interracial love story, for those of you who haven't read it. It's a little bit hard to read.
Darkness? It wasn't Heart of Darkness.
I think it was Heart of Darkness.
It wasn't Heart of Darkness about a guy going into the jungle. It's something to do with darkness.
No, it wasn't that one. It was Into Darkness or something like that. Not Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. It was a different Of Darkness, which was an interracial love story about an African American teenage boy who fell in love with a Mexican American teenage girl. I'm trying to remember what Out of Darkness. That was what it was. Out of Darkness. Like, that shocked me that got banned. Like, you have a problem with interracial love? Like, what does that tell you about the GOP?
Yeah. Te daría el sol is another Spanish one, Spanish language one. I give you the sun. If I remember. Yeah, I give you the sun. Or I will give you the sun, sorry. But yeah, there's a whole heap of
there were a couple
yeah.
in here that I was very like Queer There and Everywhere, 23 People Who Changed the World, so about queer activism. Like it's really screwed up. The love interest is another one. The Gallery of Unfinished Girls.
Love Beyond Body, Space and Time, and Indigenous LGBT sci-fi anthology.
Which,
so that's just all of the bad.
Like, yeah, that's just like the worst thing that you could possibly be, right? It's as intersectional as one can freaking get.
Yeah. Stamped from the beginning, the definitive history of racist ideas in America. So I think we've pretty much made our point here.
Yeah, and Jay Bagley has a good point. It says a lot when the biggest threat to your party is history and diversity.
Yeah. It's absolutely horrendous that this is happening. Because, like, these are all very important things. You know, they're talking about Black Lives Matter from hashtags like Black Lives Matter, racial justice in America. Have I ever told you? Like, there's rate, they're trying to ban. Basically, what they're trying to ban is anything that's not straight, white,
cis,
and cis,
and male.
Yeah. And male.
Because remember, a whole bunch of that stuff was like exploring your body for women, right? Like for cis girls, like, hey, your body's doing a thing. You might want to know about that. Like sex ed stuff is all over this too. And they have like guides to teen pregnancy. They have stuff about like, hey, safe sex for teens, birth control, that kind of stuff. Like those are getting banned too. So, like, not only are they making it as hard as possible for teens to actually get that, because, like, if you have hyper-religious parents, that freaking waiver got signed, so you don't have to get sex ed. They've got abstinence-only sex education in a lot of these places. And now they're taking the ability to even go to the school freaking library and check out any books on it. And they won't stop at schools. Like, people try to get stuff banned, as Metalhawk mentioned, from, like, regular, like, public libraries all the time. Like, this is an assault on information and our ability to know it. Because if they ban that shit from public libraries, you can't get it either. It's not just about the kids that can't get that info. You can't get it either.
Holy shit. The mighty heart of Sonny St. James. 12-year-old Sonny St. James navigates heart surgery, reconnections with a lost mother, first kisses, and emerging feelings for another girl. When Sonny St. James receives a new heart, she decides to set off on a new life plan to do awesome, amazing things you could never do before. Find a new best friend, kiss a boy from the first time. Her new life plan seems to be racing forward, but when she meets her new best friend, Quinn, Sonny questions whether she really wants to kiss a boy at all. When the reemergence of her mother, Sonny begins a journey to becoming the new Sonny St. James. So they're even slightly, I think I might like a girl. They're talking about a girl that's gone through a fucking heart transplant. So, like, the voice of a person who was extraordinarily ill. They've come back. They've got a new life. Basically,
but she has a crush on another girl. That's the problem. You see,
like
that kids might ask questions.
Yeah,
like, but and that's. It's freaking terrifying, right? It is absolutely freaking terrifying.
Yeah, it's basically you just take a random book from this list, and I would be highly surprised if you found something that wasn't considered to be anything other than straight, white, cis, male.
And, like, so let's talk a little bit about why this is fascism. Because American fascism looks a lot different than what a lot of people are like, well, it's not the Holocaust. I mean, like, we don't need to talk about the concentration camps that they set up for all of the refugees coming across the border, like back in the last administration that started technically in the administration before that. We don't need to talk about that. Like, or the ones that they set up for us as an indigenous people, which we will be talking about in a few weeks when I get done processing the sheer overload of the ways in which my own personal family history ties to all that shit, because y'all are going to get a face full again. If you tuned into the first stream that I did with Suris about when they first found the bodies, you'll have an idea of what's coming. Marrow's going to be here to keep me on a leash. We're in a few weeks, like when I'm done kind of getting through all of my feelings on it, because I'm getting extra counseling help and other stuff. Like, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff they've been finding out about residential schools. Like, people claim that, oh, well, because that's not happening right this minute, then, you know, there can't possibly be fascism. But, like, control of ideas is central to fascism. Like, groupthink is central to fascism. If they cut you off from ideas, because remember, if y'all have seen my video on latent Christianity, if you haven't, what the fuck are you doing with your life? Go open that up on another tab and watch it as soon as you're done. Like, I worked my ass off on that. Stories change the way your brain works. Stories, your brain and body, especially if you do not have problems with visualization, because I know some people do, but for most folks who do not have those struggles, your brain experiences stories very similarly to your direct experience of life itself. Stories shape lives. They change us. If you ban books, if you ban stories, if you ban information, you are cutting people off from the capability of interacting with ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things as a person who's not American, I've noticed about a lot of Americans is a lot of them don't actually understand anything outside of America. I'm talking more people who are in the GOP. I'm sorry, I don't like doing tribalism, but I will tell you this, that the vast majority of people who tell me that America is the best country in the world, and, you know, if you don't like it, leave it, which is kind of easy for me. But the vast majority of them telling me that I am trying to destroy America are ones that are like, you do realize that, you know, the far left in America is centrist for the rest of the world. Like,
and then I'm sitting over here, my dirty commie ass.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, that's the thing is, a lot of people in the US have grown up thinking that America is, oh yeah, the best thing ever, and it's like, well, no, you're not. It's not. It's far from the best thing ever. It's it's an OECD country, but there are people there are non-OECD countries that actually have better healthcare outcomes, have better education health outcomes, have better maternal mortality outcomes than the US. The US is nowhere near the best country on the planet. When, you know, when there's some places when there's some aka shithole countries, obviously not my turn, that actually have better outcomes than the US.
Well, and what's interesting too is that the tactic of banning books, like what ends up happening is the US has such an independent streak that the rest of us go, oh, I wonder why you want to ban that. And then all of a sudden those books explode in sales. And librarians do stuff like, you know, there's a story that Staniel said here. One time there was a bunch of books banned all at once, and she made a display of all the books covered with paper bags and put tags on them explaining why they were banned and how to request them. So, like, librarians will absolutely rebel against this shit, because librarians have a tendency to be as passionate as, like, authors are, as readers are, right? Like, a lot of them are themselves authors and readers. You know, like, there's rebellions that go on there because kids and adults should have access to information. Libraries are one of the greatest institutions in this country. It's one of the few things that, like, was recognized worldwide as being a positive thing that the US did, because public libraries give people unprecedented levels of access to information, like on a scale that was unimaginable, especially prior to the internet.
Yeah.
Like, card catalogs and stuff allowed you access to so much freaking more than you ever could have gotten your hands on yourself. Like, I have a library book sitting in my freaking bathroom right now that I read when I take a bath. Like, I have it's called White Fright. It's about miscegenation laws, because I've been doing research on that lately, and this was actually on the banned book list, funnily enough, for one of the states, and I saw it on a display, and I picked it up, and I got it just because it was on that display, right? Like, I never would have even known that book existed if it weren't for this BS.
Yeah, no, I'm certainly learning about a lot of books out there. Yeah, so
So the
It's
banned
this
books are being
is
banned in
definitely
like libraries and school libraries and stuff. You can still buy them on Amazon. You can still get your hands on them. And some places it's only being banned in school libraries. You can still get your hands on them in public libraries if you special order them.
yeah. So make sure you go to your libraries. Make sure you go and support your libraries, because they're going to be attacked, and this is what fascism is. Like this is a American style fascism. And I know a lot of people are going to go, oh, you're freaking out. No, this is not fascism. No, it's fascism. It's absolutely fascism. Just because you're not seeing a whole heap of Jews being rounded up and put into concentration camps, you do have Guantanamo Bay. You do have ICE. You do have concentration camps.
Can we get an abolished ICE in the chat, please?
Yes, let's do that.
Jellybean says, these people only thrive by banning things and avoiding questions, huh? Thank you so much, Jellybean. And yes, that's absolutely true, actually. Like, the GOP, part of how they are able to allow their ideology to thrive is when folks are not educated properly on the truth. Honestly, you learn even a little bit about indigenous history, and suddenly America, being this like incredible freaking nation, just falls apart in front of your eyes. Especially when you realize, again, if you haven't seen it, go check out my video on the bodies that they found on the residential schools. Like, my mom could have been sent to one of those if my great grandfather had not pulled us off those rolls. And I've been having to reckon with the fact that there were living members of my family who did get sent to those places, who woke up screaming every night, who had these horrifying flashbacks, who had PTSD for the rest of their lives. And there are probably more members of my family whose names I'll never know who are buried somewhere. Like extended family, as in like my great-grandfather's sisters and brothers, their kids. People whose names we'll never know. People who never lived to have kids of their own. Like, when you learn about that, when you read things like Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, when you read indigenous histories, when you read like stories about our cultures, when you find out that, you know, we weren't, for example, the savages that everybody seems to think we are, like when you learn more about us, when we get humanized even a little bit from the so-called country westerns and shit that people paint us as, like, imagine how much your outlook might have changed when you realize the atrocities that were committed here and how they inspired the Holocaust. And remember that they didn't end when the Holocaust did. The last school that closed in 2009, the year I graduated.
Yeah.
So like when you're talking about that, and you're talking about banning access to this information, because it's not like it's being taught in schools for most of us, right? This is not a part of the curriculum. This is people going to the library. These are kids that are already self-selecting because they want to learn more. They hear about stuff like this on YouTube or something. They want to go find out more, and the books have been fucking banned.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how absolutely demoralizing that is?
It's not just demoralizing, it's fucking terrifying.
It's sickening.
Yeah. And it's just oh god, we here in Australia, we had the same thing, in the sense, not like book banning and stuff like that, but we very much had a white washed version of our history. And my best friend, she did a degree. I'm not going to say which one because I don't know if she wants everyone knowing anything about her. And she was like asking me, they used to bury Indigenous kids up to their neck in the sand, and kick them so hard they decapitated the children. Why aren't we telling kids about this at school? And I'm like, probably because it's too fucking violent. But that's a good question. Why aren't we being taught about the massive atrocities that they've undergone? And then we can kind of understand why there's so much fucking anger towards the white person here. It was just, yeah.
Well, and that's talking about Australia, which, like, you know, the British were there too, right? Like, that's y'all's government is still genociding the Aboriginal folks in the same way that
Yep.
ours is. And again, like, we're not going to rant about that because that's got a future stream. But the reason that I brought it up is because so many of these books were also about our history, about Indigenous history, right? About the stuff that we knew, like Indigenous folks hear these stories growing up in their families. And now there are reports coming out that are confirming a lot of them. Like, a lot of this stuff is getting dug up by tribes doing these investigations. And, like, of course we're going to write about them. And what the fuck is the GOP going to do? They're going to ban the fucking books.
Yeah.
So people can't access this stuff. Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee is on that goddamn ban list. And that's a problem.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I just before the stream, I looked up banned books in Australia, and the only one that was briefly banned that there's been a few that are banned, but there's one that was banned because it looked like it was depicting CSAM. And I can understand that. There was another one where it was sort of in 2007, there was a book that was banned in Australia only for a few months. It was banned in 2007 and it was unbanned in 2007 about the peaceful pill, which is teaches people how to do euthanasia. But as far as I can tell, there's no actual banned books in Australia from the very, 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 very 30 seconds level of research that I put in. You might find one or two that kind of makes sense. As you said, was it the Anarchist's Cookbook? Yeah, you don't really want that to be completely, seen by too many people, but yeah.
I mean, that probably doesn't belong in a school library. Like, we don't need kids
No.
making napalm.
No.
I mean, not that some of us... Nope, not talking about that. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about something else. Like, let's talk about something that might be a little bit unifying to both sides of the audience here. Because let's face it, let's all get mad together. Let's talk about Oklahoma wanting to ban the teaching of biology, more or less, by allowing teachers to be sued for up to $10,000 for teaching anything that contradicts deeply held religious beliefs of students. This is horrendous.
Yep.
This bill, it was introduced by somebody who also, and this is where these stories are related, here's a not so subtle transition here. He also introduced a bill that would give individual parents the power to demand the removal of any book from school shelves that they believed contains LGBTQ content. So first off, the first law, the Oklahoma bill that would fire teachers for offending morals by teaching biology and fine them for $10,000 per student per incident.
Per student?
Per individual, per incident. This bill would allow parents to sue teachers for $10,000 per incident per individual. The fine would need to be paid by the teacher from personal resources, and the educator could not receive any assistance from individuals or groups, or they would be fired. As in, no charity could step in. Like, the ACLU could not step in and pay that fine for them. They couldn't get a Kickstarter, or they couldn't fund like a Kickstarter or GoFundMe to raise them. They had to pay out of pocket according to the bill, or they will be fired.
Shit. That's up to $400,000. I don't know how big but like, let's take 40 kids per teacher. 10,000. That is $400,000 on a teacher's salary, which is like $30,000. That is almost 20 years, give or take, depending. I don't know. Like, not almost. That's 15 years.
A biology teacher who explains evolution could be ratted out by a creationist who's failing science class. A health teacher who educates students about different forms of birth control won't be in that classroom for very long if an abstinence-promoting teenager is on the roster.
So Eric Coffey, apparently not. Couldn't the ACLU or whoever raise money for their living expenses?
No. According to this, the law specifically states, and I quote, "And the educator cannot receive any assistance from individuals or groups. This fine must be paid by the teacher from personal resources. If the teacher is unable to pay and receives assistance, they will be fired immediately and be unable to teach in the state for 5 years.
Yeah. And is this the same guy that you said was a part of the what's it called? The book banning?
He also wrote a bill, which I will link. Oklahoma bill lets parents ban LGBTQ books from schools and sue if staff won't listen.
Again, fascism.
Like, this bill would entitle parents to seek a minimum of $10,000 per each day that the book remains on the shelves. It's, for those that are curious, it is SB 1142 in Oklahoma. It is currently up for a vote, I believe. The bill that states that schools should be banned from carrying texts that cover the studies of sex, sexual preferences, sexual activity, sexual perversion, sex-based classification, sexual identity, or gender identity, or books that are of a sexual nature. Press F to pay respects for any hope of monetization this video ever fucking had. It claims that these books must be banned because a reasonable parent or legal guardian would want to know or approve of them prior to the children being exposed to them. According to the bill, school staff would be required to remove any such book within 30 days of a parent's request. If the school staff don't reply, they will be terminated. Not only that, but they'd be blocked from being hired at any other public school for 2 years. The bill would also entitle parents who have requested the removal of a book to seek damages in the amount of a minimum of $10,000 per day for each day the book remains on the shelves.
So, out of curiosity, does that mean somebody who, like yourself, a pagan, could sue to get the Bible removed?
Well, it doesn't, unless you wanted to make the argument for pederasty, because this is specifically LGBTQ themes. And sex and sexual activity. Well, actually, I could petition to have the Bible removed because of Song of Solomon. Song of Solomon is raunchy as hell.
Yeah, that's true.
There we go. Jake 4D, the Religious Belief Protection Act would end public school. There are contradictory religions that are in school. Basically, impossible to teach anything. I mean, yeah. Why do you think that the thumbnail for this says the GOP hates education? I'm not. I don't know. Allegedly, there might be some fine folks, among the GOP that don't, but the acts that are being committed in these states lead us to believe that as a general rule, it's very difficult to believe that it's not true when they seem so absolutely determined to stop children from getting access to good information. You got some kind of background noise going on there.
Yeah, I have a person who likes to weekly use a what's it called? Blower. Those. It's basically it's a broom that goes. I don't know what they're called. They're just a leaf blower. It's a leaf blower, and it's like, shut the fuck up. Use a fucking broom. So I apologize. Do you want me to try and shut my window?
I think it's okay for now. It's gone quieter. Romilius Feet, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. A little to cover the non-monetization. Glory to the All-Mother. Thank you so much. So, coming back to this, LGBTQ activists are clearly saying that both of these bills are unconstitutional, right? Like, they obviously are. But here's the problem. So are all the abortion challenges that are currently going through the courts, and the Supreme Court is stacked by the previous administration to be conservative, which means there is a small chance, however slight, that because of ideological lines, some of these things might either be refused to be seen by the Supreme Court, meaning that they might uphold a lower court's decision to uphold laws, or there's a chance that, if these bills do pass, that the Supreme Court could rule in favor of them under the state statute. Even though they violate religious freedom, technically they could rule that it's actually upholding religious freedom because now parents are allowed to get things banned because of their religious freedom themselves, because conservatives use backward logic like that. That doesn't necessarily mean that that is a good legal argument. It is to say that it is the kind of legal argument that folks who only care about power and not so much the spirit of the law can slip past.
Yeah. Because the problem is that as a atheist, you can't say this violates my religious freedom because you don't have a religion, which is why the Satanists come in. Because Satanists are technically atheists, but they're like, "Oh, I have religion. This is why we need."
Well, that's
this is
specifically the Temple of Satan, because remember
Yeah,
that
the
there are there are Satanists that actually are demonologers and do believe in supernatural things.
Yeah, but like that's why we need things, unfortunately, like the flying spaghetti monster, the Church of Satanism, whatever. Sorry, Temple.
Church of Satan. Or Temple of
Yeah,
Satan or
that
Church
one.
of Satan. There's two of them. I don't remember which is which.
That's why it's needed. I mean, if this happened, if that happened over here in Australia, whoever brought that in would that's political suicide. Yeah. Gaius the Albert says atheists has the same protection as those who are religious, but yeah, you can't use that my religious protection because atheism isn't a religion. It's
Well, under U.S. law, atheists do have protection under the First Amendment for their non-belief. They are considered a quote-unquote minority religion in the same sense as like pagans and such are, and atheists want to be classified that way under U.S. law. Y'all want that.
okay.
You do want that. Under U.S. law, that's what entitles you to First Amendment protections for your beliefs. But let's get back to the Oklahoma bill that would ban teachers for teaching. It's the name of it is the Religious Belief Protection Act.
Because religious belief needs more protection.
Yep. It also like allows them to demand and like removal of any book that is perceived as anti-religious. So there's an extra layer there. It's not just the LGBT books. Now it's any book that is perceived as anti-religious. This includes topics like evolution, Big Bang Theory, and even birth control. And it has the exact same provisions as the other bill with the anti-LGBT stuff.
Yeah.
So $10,000 per day that the book remains on the shelves if a parent demands it be removed.
Yeah, it's you do have that case where they tried bringing creationism into the school, and it went through the high court. I can't remember what it was, and basically the creationism was basically thrown out. I can't remember what it was, but it's a really famous case in the US. So hopefully, like, because that led a precedent. Can't remember what it was. Let me have a look. High court case.
For the record, by the way, this bill has been referred to the Senate Education Committee. It doesn't have any sponsors at present, but if it's passed, it would take effect immediately. Meaning that even if somebody were to challenge it, unless a judge put it on suspension, it would take effect immediately as the law of the land.
Aguilard versus Edwards, I think it was. Yeah, June 19th, 1987. 7-2 majority opinion. So Aguilard versus Edwards was a United States Supreme Court case concerning the constitutionality of teaching creationism. So it's a Supreme Court case. The court considered the Louisiana law requiring where evolutionary science is taught in public school, creation science must also be taught. Constitutionality of the law was successfully challenged in district court. Aguilard versus Treen, and the U.S. States Court of Appeal for the Fifth Circuit affirmed Aguilard versus Edwards. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the law violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment because the law was specifically intended to advance a particular religion. In its decision, the court opined that teaching a variety of scientific theories about the origins of humankind to school children might be validly done with a clear secular intent of enhancing the effectiveness of science instruction. So that's Wikipedia. I know it's not the best, but it's a Wikipedia article there. So there's a good chance that it won't go through if I'm saying if the guy stops fucking blowing the leaves. Fucking hell. Hang on, I'll be back.
Well, here's the other part of that, though. Like, this bill is much like the other sorts of bills that they've been introducing to try to kind of undermine people's rights. This bill says any deeply held religious belief. So I, theoretically, as a pagan parent, if I were to adopt a kid, move down to Texas, and put that kid in public school, if there were things that violated my deeply held religious beliefs, I could potentially demand that those things be banned. But in practice, that's not what it's going to be. Right? That's the thing. That is what makes this so entirely sneaky, because on paper, supposedly these things are supposed to be equal, but in practice, they are far from.
Yeah. No, they definitely are. Yeah, no, it's it kind of comes back to that thing that happened with Telltales. You know the one that I'm talking about, where he was basically chased out of his house, out of his town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for those of you who aren't aware, Telltale, his daughter filmed recorded her health class teacher basically pushing religion, and being a child of a atheist activist, she knew that was illegal, so she released it, and eventually, like, it got so bad, they they were chased out of their town. They were getting death threats. They had people driving past their houses. They couldn't buy things. They basically, it was basically Christian Taliban. And I can see this happening in if an atheist goes, well, it goes against my strongly held religious belief to have that this particular religious text put in the school library. They're going to be chased out. They're going to, like, it wouldn't surprise me if people will actually end up dying over this, because someone who decides to use the law to protect their religious belief, like a non-Christian, like a Muslim or a Jew or a pagan or an atheist or whatever, if they go, no, I don't want this to happen, this is, I can see these people being basically chased out. And I wouldn't be surprised if, Christian Taliban, they are very, very violent, may end up killing somebody over this, I'd say. I mean, I could be doing a slippery slope thing, but the experience that Telltale had, it wouldn't surprise me.
That doesn't seem super slippery slope to me. I mean, when Bayefeld was on here talking about the future of religious tolerance, right? My buddy Wind in the World Tree, like, he talked about how there was a pagan store in his town or near his town that, like, got put out of business because they could not be insured because people put rocks through their window every single day. And the cops, being Christian, did nothing about it. They had tons and tons of business, but eventually the cost of their insurance for their building got so bad that they ended up having to go out of business because they couldn't just stay in their building because people kept breaking their freaking windows. And, like, even here in Washington, which is one of the most liberal, like, progressive fucking areas, like, we have a freaking socialist in our Seattle City Council for Seattle. Like, that's a thing. Kshama Sawant is an actual, like, commie who's in the Seattle City Council. Like, when you're talking about that, as far left as you can fucking get, and we still have this problem of, like, I have a friend who works for an occult shop. They get robbed all the freaking time. The cops don't care. Right? Like, they don't give a shit. Like, I'm lucky that I can be fairly open about it because most of the people around me, like most of my friends, are either really chill or they just don't care, or they're atheists, or they're like other pagans. But for a lot of people, being in the broom closet is a matter of fucking survival out here, like, especially in the South. Like, what happened to Telltale is not that unusual here in the States. It just doesn't get talked about.
Yeah. And so the religious rights of these people are going to be shat all over because of the religious rights of the predominant people, a predominant religion.
Alexandria is right. The Telltale should write a book about it so that everybody can, like, so that they can ban it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really sad. It was absolutely, I was legitimately concerned. I was like sending them messages and going, look, is there anything I can do? I chucked them some money because I consider Telltale to be one of my friends. Yeah. And yeah, I was horrified. I was absolutely horrified to hear what was going on. Yeah.
Well, and like I think what's the most horrifying about all of it is that it's clearly against the Constitution, but like the spirit of the law and the letter of the law don't matter when the folks that are supposed to be enforcing it turn the other cheek. It's the same thing that happened with the GOP sort of pseudo takeover that ended up getting with Trump able to replace one of the justices on the Supreme Court, right? The GOP just pulled something out of their back pocket, made something up, made up a precedent that never existed before in order to grab power. When you have people in power who care more about power and their ideology and trying to turn this country into a theocracy than they do the actual documents upon which this country is founded, they will find every sneaky fucking way to pass that shit anyway. Like, people say that we're not, like, people say, oh well, Gilead's really far-fetched, but it's really honestly not. It's really genuinely not. It is terrifying. This is how a representative democracy turns into a fascist dictatorship. This is how a representative democracy becomes a theocracy of its own volition, with people cheering on the sidelines while the people that are being come for sit there horrified.
Yeah.
And it's part of it is because like those of us who would fight it deny that it's even possible.
Yeah. And then one of the really horrific things for me is that what happens in America happens in Australia. Like, there's a lag, but if this happens in America, it's highly likely something similar could happen here.
Well, I mean, you talked about like Sinclair did a hostile takeover of y'all's media.
Are you talking about Murdoch, Rupert Murdoch?
No, I was talking about Murdoch. Yeah, Murdoch tried to do a hostile takeover of y'all's media.
Basically, he has. Like, him and Packer own the two largest parts of our two largest branches of our media. Don't forget, Rupert Murdoch is an Australian invention. And I remember watching an interview with somebody in like the 1960s going, do not let this person, like, Murdoch is a horrible person. Do not let him in. Like, basically warning. It was in the 1960s. He was warning about Murdoch. And there is that inquiry. I don't know how, Sam, can you let Vagrant Sam's in the chat, I noticed. How's the Senate inquiry going around Murdoch Media? Is there any developments in that? Yeah. Vagrant Sam says Murdoch is peak Australian dangerous animals. Yeah, actually, to me, I wouldn't be surprised. I think Murdoch, and I don't say this lightly, I think Murdoch is directly responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people just in the past 3 years due to coronavirus. Like, he's a legitimately dangerous person. And so Vagrant Sam says nothing's happened so far with the Senate inquiry. Hopefully because we don't have media, a great media diversity in Australia.
Since we're on the topic of books, apparently there's a book called It Can't Happen about America turning to fascism and the public being too ignorant to see it because no one thinks it can actually occur.
Is that on the banned book list?
Who knows? Maybe it is. But you know what? Even if it's not banned, it sounds like something that folks might want to check out. I have no idea. It was a recommendation from the audience, but that would be really, really interesting to see. So I guess we're kind of getting close to the wrap-up section. Y'all already know what I've got coming out. Marrow, you are now obligated to have something to shill. What are you going to be working on?
All right. Well, as we mentioned earlier in the stream, I am now officially a scientist. So I want to talk about what happened with my my research into snake poo. I don't know
Which
if
is
I'll
a
be
lot
able-
more fascinating than it sounds like, guys. Trust me.
It is. It's very, very fascinating. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get to it this week or next week to film, because there's a joke in it that has to do with stuff. I don't want to make it tell you what the joke is, because that ruins the joke. But there's something happening that I have to wait to finish happening before I can make it happen.
By the way, there's 59 of you, and last I checked, 52 likes. Please hit that like button, or even hit the dislike button if you never want to see my face again, because I know that there were a couple of conservative folks in the chat that were getting mad at us earlier. Please also do, after the stream, when we wrap up, drop down into the comments, let us know what you felt about stuff, if there's anything you learned from the stream, anything like that, how excited you are that Mero's going to be co-hosting the Xenia Bridge, that kind of thing. Please do bop down there. It really, really helps us with engagement, and that first 24-hour engagement really helps with reach. And I do want to see more folks talking about this. I hope this gets picked up on more channels than just mine. But all of these stories, like, we did link articles for all of the stories in the live chat, like, as things went on. I'm probably going to go back and put them in the description after the VOD is processed. Please do that, even though it's probably going to get demonetized. And if it does get demonetized, well, just about the only way that it's going to spread is if y'all spread it around, tell people about it, send this links to your friends. Like, people need to know what's going on in politics, and people need to know, especially if you're younger like us and you don't have freaking kids, like, there's not really a way other than the news or than a stream or something that you're going to find out about this stuff. So, like, it's super important. Share the articles around, share this video around, share the stream around, tell people how excited you are that Mero's going to be co-hosting the bridge. Like, we're doing this, and we need more people to know about these things, because books being banned is an existential threat to the very concept of democracy, to the concept of education itself. Like, the moment that we start doing that to that degree, we are opening up the door for all kinds of horrendous things. They are already trying to use it to erase LGBT identity, to erase Indigenous and Black history. We are seeing the beginnings of people trying to rewrite the story of this country all over again, right as it is finally starting to be told the way it happened, or at least as close as possible, by people other than just the colonizers who took over. So if you all are interested in seeing more freedom, in seeing democracy, if y'all want to be allies, I highly suggest, even if you don't spread my video around, please, at the very least, find more articles, educate yourself on this topic, shout it from the rooftop if it's safe for you to do so. Let people know about this stuff. Make noise, because that's the only way it's going to stop.
Yeah. All right.
So, as far as my shill side, I am actually doing a video that is probably going to make half of everybody who watches it potentially mad at me if they don't agree with everything I have to say. I am trying to start a conversation this week. I am doing a video called Divination Ethics 101, Let's Start a Conversation, in which I'm going to subdivide the topic of divinatory ethics into 3 categories: querent or questioner, diviner, and solo divination. And I'm going to talk about my views on divinatory ethics in depth, with reasoning and, say, philosophical justification and, like, I guess, argument. More than just you should or shouldn't do something. Like, for example, I'm going to talk about how I personally believe that people who say that charging for divination is wrong are classist, and here's why. So, if you all want to be a part of that, I am not hoping for this video to be definitive in any way. I'm hoping that this video will spark conversation across different communities and sub-communities, and I'm very excited. So that's coming out on Thursday. The audio is completely recorded. The script is done. I'm starting work on the video. It should be out for patrons tomorrow. It will be out for everybody else on Thursday at the usual time. So I'm excited about that. And with the video actually comes a little handout of 10 questions to ask your diviner, which, you know, not every single one of them might be important to you, but it might start some discussions for if you are ever thinking about giving a divinatory reading and you're not really sure about your diviner. It might be interesting to ask some of these questions to see if you guys are on the same page about how divination even works, etc. So that is what I'm doing this week. I haven't seen a lot of discussion about divination in like any level of detail the way that I'm kind of playing with ethics in this particular video. So I'm hoping folks disagree with me and articulate their comments in a well-worded, detailed way with good supporting arguments. And I'm hoping that these discussions get sparked across both my channel and the wider community and in my server and other places. Which reminds me, Mero's server, if you are in my Discord server, link is in the description below. If you are in my Discord server, Mero's server is now allied with the Xenia Bridge. So if y'all are interested in joining her community, it is an allyship community that is primarily focused on science communication. Pagans are welcome there. The mod team knows to protect pagans and knows that like debate and such of belief and all of that are not necessarily the focus of the community. It's built on a lot of the same values the bridge is, and it's still kind of small and kind of cozy and growing. So if y'all are interested, link is in the allied servers list. If you are a member already in my server, you have access to that.
Yeah, so come join, because I left Twitter, and I don't actually have many online friends at the moment because most of them were on Twitter.
But you have me. We talk every day.
I do have you. Yeah, that's true. Thyla's not going to come out, but here's Thyla.
She's doing a hide.
She's doing a hide.
Mero was saying she thinks that both of her snakes are going to be going into shed pretty soon, which Marmar, if you guys saw on my Twitter, I posted pictures of Marmar shedding. First time I've ever actually seen it.
There she is.
Hi. Oh, we can see the little tongue. He's adorable.
Hello.
He's a belly.
She's gorgeous. Well, Lilith is in shed. Looks like she's more or less in shed. She's not blue yet, but she's behaving like she's in shed or about to go into shed. So, probably might take a while.
Marmar eats a shed, so he refuses to eat for a little while, like before he goes into shed, because he'll eat all of his shed and then he'll like gorge himself the next day. All right, so with that in mind, one other big thing is the tagline for the Xenia Bridge is actually changing. We are changing it to Allyship is Healing. The new logo is going to be Mero's avatar and mine holding the Staff of Hermes, with her snakes being the ones twined around it. JACandQuill is working on that. So thank you all so much for hanging out with us. As I say always, we're stronger together, and Allyship is Healing. I hope you all have a wonderful night.